Hello everyone, this is Showtime 112. Wild Weasel aircraft, the type specially equipped to fight enemy anti-aircraft defense, first appeared in the Vietnam War. The job was initially given to F-100 Super Sabre. It was soon taken over by F-105 and eventually F-4 Phantom. The ultimate Phantom Wild Weasel, F-4G, entered service in late 1970s, and it was the US Air Force's primary SEAD aircraft by the time of the 1991 Iraq War. Today, US Air Force relies primarily on F-16C for the task, and those airframes are designated F-16CJ. The Viper's involvement in this role first began in mid-1980s. At that time, 52nd Tactical Fighter Wing based in Spangdahlem, Germany, flew a mix of F-4G Wild Weasels and F-4Es. Those two types operated in pairs as hunter-killer teams. The G model had a sophisticated radar homing and warning system, specifically designed for Wild Weasel operations, capable of detecting, analyzing, labeling, and prioritizing among a large number of hostile emitters with a 360 degrees coverage. The F-4E element of a pair would attack based on cues given by the F-4G. But in late 1986, the F-4Es in the 52nd Tactical Fighter Wing were getting replaced by F-16Cs. Apparently, those F-4E airframes were supposed to be delivered to Turkey in 1987, so Vipers were quickly assigned to Spangdahlem as a temporary solution until the next dedicated Wild Weasel platform was developed. The most likely candidate was F-15G, based on the Strike Eagle, but this never materialized. By January 1991, the multinational coalition deployed over 1,700 combat and support aircraft to fight Iraq, and most of them were located in Saudi Arabia and other Arab Gulf states. A much smaller but still significant number was deployed to Turkey. The element known as Joint Task Force Proven Force included about 100 combat aircraft from US Air Force Europe, among which 13 F-4Gs and 12 F-16Cs from the 23rd Tactical Fighter Squadron of the already mentioned 52nd Tactical Fighter Wing. The purpose of this northern force was to disrupt Iraqi integrated air defense network, tie down Iraqi forces, and deny the Iraqi Air Force a safe haven away from coalition reach. The task force operated in a semi-autonomous regime, and even though a small airstrike was flown by F-111s on the evening of January 17th, it joined the war effectively on day 2 of the operations, January 18, as the Turkish authorization to use Incirlik Air Base only came the day before. The most detailed account of a Wild Weasel mission flown by F-16s in Desert Storm I could find came from Viper Pilot, the memoirs of Dan Hampton. Hampton was a young, cocky pilot assigned to fly F-16 in a mixed unit, the 23rd Tactical Fighter Squadron. Despite the fact that at the time his airframe was actually less capable in the SEAD role than the F-4G, he still thought that the good old Phantom was a relic of the past. He especially believed that weapon system officers were on their way out, and that the future was all about single-seat aircraft. On 19 January 1991, Hampton was flying a daylight SEAD mission to Mosul. His flight leader was in an F-4G, and behind the two of them, there was another F-4-F-16 pair. The flight call sign was Torch. The main target was Mosul Air Base. The F-16s from Torrejon were the main strike element, while F-15Cs flew fighter escort at 30,000 feet. It was just as well, because AWACS operator called 3 groups of bandits heading north towards the strike formation. The Eagles raced away to meet the threat, but soon another kind of a threat made an appearance.
Razor 3. Mud. SA-2 southwest.
One of the F-16s up front was locked by an SA-2 somewhere south of it.
Torch 1. Magnum SA-2.
This was Hampton's leader. The big HARM missile left the Phantom's wing and accelerated. It was a spectacular sight which Hampton had never witnessed before, not even in training. As he looked ahead, he saw several gray smoke trails reaching up from the ground. Those were SAMs, heading towards the Weasel flight. Hampton experienced the well-known effect of time slowing down.
Torch 2, SA3, south.
The leader pulled his Phantom sideways and started dispersing chaff heavily. He then flipped over and pulled down. Hampton followed in his Viper. The Phantom pulled up in the classic last-ditch maneuver. Both aircraft then turned to the direction the missiles came from and rolled inverted. The evasive maneuvers and chaff worked. Torch 1 and 2 survived at least 3 missiles fired at them.
2 dogs. Slapshot SA2 bearing 205.
This meant that Hampton, whose call sign was 2 dogs, was supposed to launch a quick reaction harm missile along the given bearing. This was meant to force the radar to shut down or, even better, destroy it. As Hampton pressed the button, he experienced what many pilots do in such situations. Nothing was happening. But the Viper eventually shook as the harm left the rail. And if you want to try wild weaseling in your F-16 over Iraq, the closest you can probably get to it is to fly a high-fidelity simulation with some high-end controllers. Thrustmaster's Viper TQS mission pack is a very realistic-looking replica of F-16's throttle quadrant. I was given this one for free in exchange for an honest review. This controller has the official US Air Force license. It's quite heavy and it has a solid, sturdy feel. That's especially true for the grip itself. Although I've never flown the real thing, it feels very realistic. There you can find switches for your speed brakes, radio and IFF controller, radar cursor and more. And if enemy aircraft surprise you while you're trying to outsmart SAMs, dogfight radar modes enable you to quickly switch to air-to-air and lock up the bandits. The throttle movement feels smooth and precise. Pushing the throttle all the way forward, you will reach the afterburner detent. In order to engage the afterburner, you need to lift the grip and push it further. The real F-16 grip works the same way, and you always know where your maximum mil power is. The panel features a number of switches and knobs which feel very strong and durable, with the exception of a rather flimsy landing gear lever. You need to use some strength to operate these switches, which gives them a realistic feel. Viper TQS mission pack comes pre-assembled. All you have to do is connect it to your PC with a cable. It's essentially plug and play. DCS will recognize it, and the F-16 module will have all the controls set up just right. One slightly negative experience I have is that I need to do hardware recalibration more often than I'd want, but that might have something to do with Windows updates. Should you buy this product? If you're a serious sim player who can afford high-end controllers, and if your favorite plane happens to be F-16, I'm sure you will be very happy with the Viper TQS. Of course, you can use it for any other module as well. The fact that it's a realistic replica gives it that special edge over generic controllers in my opinion. If you buy Thrustmaster products through their webshop and use my creator code SHOWTIME112 between 25th of January and 9th of February 2025, you can automatically get between 10 and 30 euro discount, and your favorite channel will be supported by a small commission at no extra cost to you. Don't miss the opportunity. The offer is limited to the EU webshop. The radios then suddenly exploded with chatter. Eagle pilots called splashing MiGs, and some F-16 strikers jettisoned their bombs because they saw an air threat behind them. Hampton's flight was behind the strikers. That meant that MiGs could have been right there. Hampton's head started to swivel madly, attempting to spot enemy fighters. But it suddenly dawned on him that there were no MiGs. His harm launch was seen by the aircraft ahead of him and interpreted as an Iraqi air-to-air missile. As the entire formation came close to Mosul, the strikers began rolling in and releasing their Mark 84s. The second Weasel element leader called defending an SA-3 to the south. Hampton could clearly see the missiles. Torch 1 didn't answer, but simply launched his other harm, which dove straight down towards the smoke trails. One of the strikers failed to drop in the first pass and went for another. The Weasel leader responded they would cover the attack from the east. Hampton was again ordered to fire a harm. This time, Hampton felt more confident, and his other harm was soon racing towards the city. But his leader was also still heading towards Mosul and calling Torch, Magnum, Magnum. Magnum is a radio code word for a harm missile launch. Hampton was initially confused, as he knew his leader had no more missiles left. He just kept calling Magnum, SA-3, Mosul over the radio. Hampton learned the Wild Weasel trick that day. The Iraqis were listening to their radio traffic and probably knew what Magnum meant. Very often, just mentioning that word over the radio forced the radars to shut down. The return flight was not free from drama, and you can see what happened in our video, 5 Things You Never Knew About F-16. Wild Weasel F-16s flew 577 sorties in Desert Storm. F-4G was slowly pulled out of service soon after the conflict, and it was completely retired in 1996. It was the last specialized Wild Weasel type in the US Air Force service. As mentioned, the SEAD role is still performed by F-16s, with F-35 as a probable replacement. Once again, check out the special discount you can get in Thrustmaster's webshop by applying my creator code SHOWTIME112. It's a limited time offer only, so don't miss it. The discount only applies to the EU webshop. Thank you for your time and keep watching SHOWTIME112.